Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. It's been a long, long time since I've had a guest on, but I thought it was time for a change up. So we have the one and only Clara. How are we doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm not too shabby. Now, the last episode we done, I think, was about a year
During
ago.
lockdown. No, it was March. It was around, February, March during lockdown. Um,
Yeah.
we did one on like values or something like that.
Every episode we've done, bar your first one, has been during lockdown.
Yeah, that's true. That's
So,
true.
some form of lockdown, whether it was the first, second, third, whatever it was for people. But listen, there's maybe some people new to the podcast. They've been living under a rock. They don't know who you are. So start from the top. Tell the people who you are, where you come from, what you've been doing the past few years. A little bit of an update on how prep's going this year as well.
My name's Clara, and I am the female coach under the VW Physique brand, which I've been doing for the last, since the first lockdown, really, since before the first lockdown started. And that's what I do full time. And alongside it, I am a trainee sport and exercise psychologist, which means that I'm currently undergoing supervised training to become, an applied psychologist, essentially, which specializes in essentially understanding people's motivation for exercise, but also helping people with their mindset when it comes to performance in any kind of sport or like even things like bodybuilding and whatever that might be. And yeah, in terms of me and my background, I've been into bodybuilding since I started working with Yvonne, really since 2018. Competed for the first time then, and it was an amazing experience. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I fucking loved it. And came back in 2019, did pretty well for myself. I came third in the UK Ultimate Physique finals and took a year out, a much needed long off season to come back this year. And I am now into my 18th week of prep. Just stepped off stage this weekend. If you're watching this on YouTube, I normally don't look this tanned, but competed there on Sunday at the WMBF UK's first ever show, and I came fourth, which is absolutely incredible. And yeah, I'm headed into a long season now of competing that will be ending in December. And I think that's what we're going to be digging into a little bit more today.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think it's also fair to point out that your jawbones don't use it as chiseled.
Yeah, that's also true.
Currently making mine look like I've got a very fat face. So effectively, this is your third season, right?
Yeah.
I guess what would be quite good for some of the first time competitors out there, guys and girls, tell us just how things have differed for you over those three different preps. You actually mentioned it during a check-in, or I think at the show, how chilled you were. So, do you want to kind of allude into that, whether it's different mindset or different how you feel or on the day? What's the difference?
What isn't the difference? So many things have changed. Where to begin? I think one of the first things to know is that prep's really hard, but prep does get easier the more you do it. And I don't think it gets easier in terms of you don't suddenly have more energy because you've done prep before. It's just that you kind of know what's coming your way. So mentally, you're a lot more prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. So going into my third season, having had a much longer off season in between, that's made a huge difference. The biggest thing I've noticed is that this year, my food focus has been a lot lower compared to other years. For your first prep, you're always like, you've never been that hungry in your life because you've never dieted to that point, because why would you? So that was really like first prep, food focus was pretty high towards the end. And then second prep, because I only had, we had like a 7 to 8 month off season and we pushed quite hard. But even then, it's almost like prepping 2 years in quick succession feels quite close, and you maybe feel like you've not been able to make the most of it. And I was a student at the time, so again, it was a bit more challenging. And I think because between my regional shows and the finals, I had a really long gap that made it quite challenging. And obviously, like, I was finishing my master's degree, I was looking for a job, I had a lot of other things to contend with. Whereas this year, going into prep, working in the fitness industry as a coach, working as an applied psychologist, in exercise specifically, it's just been a complete different ball game. Like I said, food focus has been a lot lower, I think mainly because this time I've not tried to avoid hunger, and I think that ties into kind of being able to apply psychology to myself a bit better this year, and understanding that you're going to be almost like accepting that going into prep I'm going to be hungry and not trying to cheat that. And I think I said this either in a vlog or in a post I put up on Instagram, but I've not been drinking all the diet juice. I've not been buying all the 10-calorie jellies. I've not tried to fit in fucking Halo Top into my diet until like I was 6 weeks out or whatever. I've literally just gone in with the macros, with the plan, come up, eaten pretty much the same shit every single day, adapting to my calories as they've changed. And that has made such a difference, because it's just meant that I've just got on with it. And it sounds really simple, but it's just trying not to avoid hunger, trying to make prep easy is something that I've not tried doing this year, because I just knew it would be whatever it needs to be. And I've just focused on just executing. And I've never been this consistent, this on point. I've literally never been this laser focused before on a prep, and it's been so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good comparison for people out there who are going to their first season but kind of fully know that it won't be their last, and kind of the things of, I'm not going to say what not to do, because you've obviously experienced them, you've learned from them, but I guess it's some good tips for newbies, some for first timers. Because believe it or not, I'm sure when I dieted for the photo shoot in 2019, I tried to fit Halo Top in my diet.
Yeah, I did that in 2019 too. I was like, as long as I can on weekends. And I thought, to be fair, it maybe worked for me at the time, because I thought, okay, well, if I can keep doing like eating slightly differently on weekends, then it doesn't feel like I'm dieting, because I'm still sort of following the off-plan meal that I'd have on the weekend, but I'm obviously just tracking it. And at times I feel like it helped, but then reflecting on that now, having just been like quite robotic and anal about my food and just keeping everything the same, I've actually found that it's removed that food focus, because I'm not thinking, oh, what do I need to take out so I can fit in half a chocolate bar that's not even going to be satisfying. And it has really made a difference. Like, it genuinely has. And I didn't think it would be as impactful as it has been.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think talking about prep kind of gets us on to the topic of today's podcast, and it's quite fitting. Obviously, you have just competed, and kind of what we're speaking about. And this, for those of you that don't know, what we're probably going to speak about is relating to one of Clara's articles on the website. I was just editing stuff on the website, formatting stuff, and came across it. I think it was a year ago you wrote it, and just thought it was an amazing article, and why we hadn't spoke about it yet on a podcast together. I'm not sure why, but with the season coming to an end, and with a lot of federations now saying, right, their first show of the season 20 weeks away, their schedules are out, a lot of first timers are now thinking about next year. But do you want to kind of summarize in a minute or 30 seconds just what the article was about, but don't give too much away?
So what the article was about was kind of lessons that I'd learned, or things that I'd been able to reflect on a year on from stepping off stage. So I wrote the article in October 2020 because I last competed in October 2019. And essentially what I was reflecting on was the fact that bodybuilding is something that, if you commit to it in the long term, you need to be in the right headspace to commit to it long term. And what I mean by that is that your way of validating yourself and your way of gaining self-esteem out of a process such as bodybuilding shouldn't be contingent upon things like placings and medals, and that even with a really successful season like placing or like winning a British title or whatever it might be, that with bodybuilding the goal and the work doesn't stop there. It's always about improving on your own markers of success, not just based on what a judge says.
Good. Pause. Pause there, because I know that you could just speak from now
for 10 hours on the same topic. Yep.
I could have any input. So yeah, effectively that's what we're going to speak about. And I think it kind of, if we can kind of summarize, I suppose the best place to start before we kind of go into advice. The main thing would be advice for first-time competitors in regards to, a placing and deeming if they're worthy from a placing. I guess if I was to ask you your advice on that for newbies, but reflecting on your journey, shows that you've maybe placed in or not, relating that to the question, I think would be really invaluable.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is that when you compete, it's really, really easy to get sucked into seeking external validation from placings. And of course, it's nice to place in a show. Of course it is. It feels amazing. I've come first, I've come third. I've got 2 freaking amazing trophies to remind me of the fact that I came third at a British final. But I've also not been in the first call out. I've also come close to placing and not quite placed like this weekend. And what I really want to, what I think is important to think about is that when you go in and compete, you need to make sure that you feel worthy of yourself and that you have validated your own journey before anybody can tell you whether you're good enough or not. And the reason that's so important is because often we, especially with social media, and we've spoken about this before, but especially with social media, it's so nice to get the accolades. You're prepping, you're getting lean, everyone's liking your pictures. Yeah.
Before someone out there is maybe thinking, what do you mean by validate the process?
So what I mean by that is having that external validation. So having the people from the outside clapping for you and basically telling you that you're great. What I mean by validating the process for yourself is knowing why you're doing this and also knowing, the kind of success markers that you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, in your first competition, like you see it on Instagram, but most people don't place in their first competitions. Like most people have to graft for years in order to place. And if you go in and you've put all your eggs in one basket and all you're relying on to give you confirmation that your prep was good, that you look good, that you're worthy of being a bodybuilder, is someone calling your name out, you're fucked. Like immediately you're fucked. Yeah. That can just completely not just ruin the prep itself for you, but then really affect your relationship with bodybuilding. And we'll get into this later. But basically making sure that you know why you're doing bodybuilding is really, really important. And in that process, it's making sure that before you've even stepped on stage, you can reflect on all the things that you've actually accomplished throughout your prep. And you can go, you know what, irrespective of the outcome, I know I have been relentless with my cardio. I've not missed a single session. I've done all my steps when I needed to do them. I've not fucked up my diet, or I've not tried to hide that I fucked up my diet from my coach. I've not tried to cut corners. I've done everything in my power, and I am so proud of the journey I've been on and on the transformation that I've accomplished. It's knowing that before you even step on stage, because if you can reflect on that, and if you know why you were doing that in the first place, and you can say, actually, I'm proud of myself regardless of this, when you come off stage, whether you've placed or not, it will feel so much better. And yeah, getting a trophy, that just makes, that's like the cherry on the top. That's like, fuck yeah, like someone else has seen the work too. But even if you don't get that trophy, you at least still know that you had the best prep that you possibly could have. You can still be proud of yourself. Because if you leave it all in the hands of the judges, or in the hands of the uncontrollable variables, such as who shows up on the day, you're going to be potentially very, very, very disappointed and disheartened off the back of that.
Yeah. And I totally interrupted you when you were on a point and you went off on a tangent. I'm not too sure if you went on the original point.
I don't know what I was saying, but doesn't matter. I'm sure I'll come back to it later.
I was going to say, I'm not going to say go back to what you were saying, because I can't even remember
what you were saying. We'll pay it back.
I think there'll probably be some dudes listening to this as well. I'd imagine there will be. And to give them an input, I think as us guys, we don't want to show that as much. We want to kind of show that we're hardcore. You don't think like that. But my first prep, I thought like what you're describing is exactly how I thought in regards to like the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
I validated it all from whether I placed or not. I
Mm-hmm.
went with the mindset of I need to win. If I don't win, I'm fucking shit. And it kind of ruined the enjoyment by the end of it when I didn't place, and then realized that normality, normal life was still going on. There wasn't just this little prep bubble anymore. The bubble had been burst.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I mean, I've spoken about that a lot, but I just wanted to add it in that the preps I've enjoyed the most are the ones I've went into with zero expectation.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. And I think it's not just the zero expectation, but something you mentioned there's really important to say that, life continues outside of prep, and making sure that you have more than one leg under your self-esteem, or like that kind of table, is so important, because prep's not going to last forever. Like prep actually in the grand scheme of things is so short. And if all you're relying on to feel good about yourself is people liking your pictures of you shredded, and everyone messaging you being like, bro, or like, hey, like you're gonna do super well, like you'll fucking smash it, and then it doesn't happen and that leg gets taken away, your table's gonna fall. So making sure that in the journey you still continue to cultivate the other areas of your life that are important to you, and that you don't just shut off the people who aren't interested in your prep, like that's invaluable, because then it makes the journey of bodybuilding so much more fulfilling. And it also reminds you that actually this is a hobby. We do this for so much more than just the trophy, or hopefully we do it more for than for just the trophies, because otherwise I just don't think it's worth it, if I'm honest with you. So making sure that yes, you do need to be laser focused on your prep, but that you don't lose sight of everything else that matters. Like that's so critical. And I think that's what helps us bounce back from from competitions where we step off stage and we go, actually that wasn't what I came here for. Like I wanted to do a bit better than that. If you go in with a mindset of, yeah, I wanted to do better and I didn't, but there's so much more to my life, and actually what do I need to do now to continue working, it just spurs you on, and it makes it more enjoyable, because you want to push yourself and you want to see where you can take it.
Yeah, don't be wrong. Like, let's not beat around the bush. Everyone competes to win, but the thing
Yeah,
is, of the 13 athletes on stage, one person can win.
exactly.
One person comes second, one person comes third. And I actually had this conversation with Tom. We're on the phone, and I was like, there are some shows before that I was looking at myself in the mirror going, fucking hell, I look the shit. I look great. I look dynamite. And then I just looked at the guys backstage and went, oh, well, there's always next year.
And that's it. And that's it. Like we want to bring our best, otherwise we wouldn't. Like if you didn't want to bring your best, you wouldn't bother smashing your cardio when you need to do it. You wouldn't bother with your steps. You wouldn't bother sort of ignoring hunger when you're fucking starving and you're done with your calories for the day. Like you just wouldn't. But ultimately it's about being able to still take pride and have those moments of like, you know what, I look fucking amazing. And yeah, maybe the other guys backstage look better than me, but like being able to acknowledge to yourself that you look great and that you look like the best version of yourself, that's worth its weight in gold. No one can take that away from you.
I would agree. Now, some of the questions that I've got written down, and one of them is to give a first-hand experience of what it's like to place or win, shall we say, versus not placing at all. You can give a pretty different perspective from me, probably similar in one sec, but from my first show to not placing to shows this year not placing, completely different experience. So from a female side of things, do you want to give your perspective? And it's mostly just to give the first timers out there that we've been through the process and I've maybe done it wrong, right? But just learning from that, and because I understand there'll be people that compete next year that listen to this that will be really disappointed when they don't place. It's so natural, right? I've seen it at shows. I've been there as a coach trying to console my athlete because they've came fourth, and they think the world's over. And then after, an hour, they realize that they're fine.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd add that in.
Give that context. Yeah. It's, so I suppose I'll start from the beginning, because when the first show I ever did, I had no expectations. I signed up to compete when I was like, what, 9 weeks out or something like that from the show. Initially, the plan was just to do a fitness photo shoot. And then I was like, you know what? Let's fucking go for it. Let's do it. So I had no expectations. I did everything last minute. I didn't know how to pose. I just went to the show and I was like, I am buzzing to be here. Like, this is the best day of my life. And I loved every minute, every single picture. I am cheesing. Like, I was having the best day of my life. Obviously, I didn't place, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. I'll come back next year. I know like next year, I'll know what I'm doing. And so the next year came and I competed. My first show of the year was PCA Midlands. And I came fourth and it was fucking gutting. I was so disappointed. I think the main thing that made me not rage but just like be quite upset at myself is that I felt like my posing had let me down, because first and second place I was like, they beat me by a country mile, their physique was so much better, but between third place and me I was like, fuck, I feel like they just outposed me, which was really annoying because I was like, I know I should have done better with my posing practice. And to go from that, and the following week, I came first in the fitness model category and third in bikini. And it was such a 180 in terms of like the experience, but also, again, I did feel like my hard work had been validated. I felt seen by the judges. But I think the difference that made the difference was also that I'd gone in with a lot less pressure on myself. I was like, you know what? Well, I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know how they're going to present themselves. And yeah, like I think especially that 2019 first kind of like loss or not placing, that was the sorest I've ever had, because I genuinely thought that I looked good enough, and then it was just like all that self-doubt was creeping in, and I think it maybe took about like 24 to 48 hours to be like, you know what, you just need to snap out of it. You've got another show coming up this weekend. If posing is the thing that let you down, you better be in that freaking studio for half an hour every day. And I did. And I had my posing Saturday playlist and I was flicking my hair and I was practicing the fitness model kind of poses. And then I came first and I was like, yes, that's how you do it. And to then come third at finals, that was just, it was an unbelievable feeling. Like it was amazing. It really, really was. But to have made it to finals, like I went into that show thinking, I am so like happy to be here. Like it was just, I was so grateful to have placed, you know, to be able to go to British final for the first time, like my second year competing. I was like, this is so incredible. And I remember walking into the venue thinking, oh, you know, I don't need to place because I'm so proud of myself. Like I remember texting you when I was at the gym in those last few sessions being like, I'm in the bathroom bawling my eyes out. I'm so proud of myself. Like, oh my God. So I went into the show already so proud of myself. I remember seeing the trophies and thinking, I'm proud of myself, but one of those would be really cool. And obviously to win, like it was amazing. It was incredible. And then of course that spurred me on to want to come back better and to really push myself on this off season to make sure that the package I brought to stage this year was better than the last time I competed. And obviously I just competed there on the Halloween weekend, and I like we were just chatting off air there. It was a split show, so we had the sort of pre-judging in the morning and then the placings and awards in the afternoon. And when I came off stage, well, we went on stage, and when they did the first call outs, my number was the first one to be called out, and I was in the center stage for the majority of those comparison rounds. And I was like, I have never been called out for it. I've never been in the center stage for this long. This is unreal. And then I saw the pictures and I was like, I cannot believe the improvements I've made. I was so happy and so over the moon to be able to acknowledge that the markers of success that I was going into the show with, I'd met them. I was like, boom, fantastic. Did it sting to not place afterwards? Fuck yeah, of course it did. Because of how they called us out, I genuinely thought I would have come at least third, but I didn't. But actually having that pause in between prejudging and then awards gave me that time to reflect and to look at the pictures and go, you know what, like I came back to improve. Like I took this off season to improve my physique, and I came back and I fucking did that. And to place fourth in a really competitive lineup and to get invites to go to the WNBF Worlds, like I couldn't ask for anything more in that warm-up show that we were meant to be doing. But yeah, it did sting, absolutely. But I think the difference in mindset this time was that I went in and I was already proud of myself for the work I put in. I wasn't maybe looking for that validation, whereas because in 2019, my first ever show in 2018 was PCA, didn't even get a first call out, looked rubbish, whatever. And the second show that I did ever was PCA again. And I was like, I look better than I did last time. I hope you see it. And when that didn't happen, I was like, oh, I need to clock that mindset ASAP. And that's something that obviously I've been working on this year. So different experiences of winning and not placing. But yeah, of course, it's sore when you don't place and you think you should have placed, or you feel that the package that you bought was competitive enough to place. But then when you do, like, it doesn't change. Like whether I placed or not, the trophies that I won, they were amazing to win. But after the show day buzz, it's kind of like, well, life goes on. Like no one cares really. So you need to be grounded enough that irrespective of how it goes, you can be proud of you. So a very, very, very long-winded answer to that question. But you've got experience too of both placing and not placing. So
yeah, but before I do that, I think it's good to point out that not at any point did you throw a hissy fit when you didn't place.
oh no, I mean, because the girls that did well, I mean, you clap for them and everyone's worked as hard as everyone, and you have to be proud and you have to be buzzing and you have to understand that bodybuilding is a subjective sport, and that, you know, the feedback I got from the judges was, you know, fair enough. I took it on board, and you know, it is what it is. I've got another 5 shows this season to continue to improve on that, and I've got the rest of my life to be a better bodybuilder.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out for first timers that before I go into my experience, that they take on board what you said, because you can tell that to summarize that, you said that it's all right to be disappointed, but you kind of used it to fuel the kind of hunger for the next show and to come back better. You didn't let it get you down in the dumps and, you know, end prep where some people might, to then come back the week after and win. I just thought it was worthwhile pointing that out.
Yeah.
I didn't do what Clara did for her first show. I went in with expectations and thought about a year and a half that I needed to win this show, and that was my main focus for a year and a half. Didn't happen. I honestly hated bodybuilding after that. Hated it. I was like, what a fucking waste of time that was. I was never stepping on stage again. And then it just really fell out of love with the competing scene. I was around in 2018 because I was doing a bit of coaching, and it was only really 2019 that I got back in it, because I watched PCA Scotland, and I thought, ooh, kind of like what those classic guys are doing. I think a prancer in. But yeah, back to 2017, I thought the world was over, man. I'd pushed everyone away. I was very reclusive. I honestly didn't speak to anyone, and after the show, that persisted. Because when you don't chat to people for months, they don't just magically come back because you finish your show. So I had a lot of relationships I need to try and make up. And it was kind of like the week after my show, I was like, why the fuck was I thinking like that? Why did I do it? But you know, it was that was my mindset. There was no fuel in me to come back better. That was a waste of time. That was my mindset at the time, because I kind of prepped, I would say, wrong. You know, at the time, on bro foods, too much drugs at the time. Stupid fat burners before bed, shouldn't have done it, but followed the plan. Anyway, fast forward to 2020, did the only show that went ahead before lockdown, literally the week before it. Went in with zero expectations because I hadn't placed before, so I was like, well, I've not placed, so anything's better than that.
Definitely.
Effectively, I came last. People don't know that. I said I didn't place, but there was 4 of us and I came 4th. Right, so to make more of a poignant point, I said I came last, and then went in, didn't really care how I was going to do, just wanted to see, and then went in 2 categories, which was cool. It was, I think that it was the feeling of I'd had in 2017, which was so bitter and angry. It wasn't like it was this massive sense of joy and elation. It was just like, fuck, right, yeah. Well, the last couple, 2.5 years, yeah, I've been worth it. I look a bit better, and it felt good to, as you said, be recognised. But you know, the week after the fucking world locked down, and you realise that there's a lot more to life than the fucking winning the bodybuilding show.
100%. And that's it. It's like when you don't put so much pressure on it, it's almost like it's not that the high isn't as high, but your baseline is just a lot more, it's a lot more grounded. And I think that's the word. It's just you just can come back to being like, well, I was happy with myself before and I'll continue to be happy with myself after. And it's nice to get the recognition, of course it is, and it's a bit disappointing when you don't, but if you can acknowledge that you're proud and that you can look back at the work that you put in and go, well, yeah, like that's what it's about, because I'm going to continue doing that. Like that's not going to change now. I'm in it for the long run, whether it's to step on stage again or whether just to improve my physique, because I love it.
Yeah, I think though, winning 2020 did certainly raise the bar and raise my own standards. So then going into this year, I probably put a lot more pressure on myself. I didn't show it or tell anyone, but on my own shoulders, I felt an enormous amount of pressure to then go into that first show knowing I was maybe like 80% and was clearly met with that. You know, like the results reflected that I wasn't good enough at the time, and that was frustrating.
Yeah,
that really was. But I wasn't like, I was frustrated at like myself, because I was like, well, fuck, I know I'm way better than this. But dug for 2 weeks, won the next show, dug for a few days, didn't place in the show after that. So that was a total mindfuck. PCA to PCA. So you go from like winning, feeling good, feeling great, and you go, fuck, I'm gonna go ahead and do next week, because I feel like I could suit the category and could grab another place in, and I wanted something between then and the finals. I needed something to keep me going. And I came fourth, and I'd be a total fucking liar if I said it didn't piss me off.
Yeah.
Massive liar if I didn't say that. And it probably got in my head for longer than I should have let it. Right? It was kind of like, the show was the Sunday. I still fucked off with it on the Tuesday. Still so fucked off. Just because, like we are all biased, right? So when we think, well, we can see we're better than another athlete, and then they place above us, we kind of go, what the fuck? But anyway, and it was really Rob that sponsors me from TNF. He went, mate, your energy focus on the result 2 days ago is taking you out of the energy you can put into this Sunday at the finals. And I was like, fucking hell, he's so true.
Yeah.
But stupid prep brain was doing my head in. And then,
of course.
And then winning the British was cool. And then the most fun I had at a show was FitX.
Yeah, you've said that before.
Just because it was the last one, I'd felt like that weight that was on my shoulder to do well because I'd won the previous year, or the brand still is progressing in the industry. I felt like I need to win here, or I need to do very well. And then by FitX, I didn't care.
Yeah,
because I'd done well. I was like, fuck, just whatever happens, happens. And then that was the most fun I had for competing. And then it's just weird how my experiences, I suppose, are very different.
And I think like it does change from show to show, and also there's always so many more factors that play into it, like into how a show feels, kind of the lead up to it. It was interesting what you said there about coming away from the first two rows one where you felt like frustrated at yourself because you knew that you could look better. And I think that's really important to acknowledge, because it's not frustrating at like the judges or like, oh my God, I can't believe they didn't place me. It's kind of what you said is reflective of why bodybuilding is as amazing as it is when you go in for it in the long term, is because you want to bring your best. And when you feel like what you display isn't your best work, that's frustrating, because we do it for our own kind of sense. Like if you'd won and you felt like you weren't presenting your best, I wonder whether it would have felt good in that way. Because if you then look back and go, well, actually I didn't look that great. Like I'd rather, it's almost like saying that I'd rather lose to an incredible lineup than when I don't even look that great. Like the stand is like not very like fantastic. I don't know. That's just a think off the top of my head there.
No, you're so right. Don't get me wrong, though, I think that from a coaching perspective, when I have athletes, when I watch those athletes compete, and I feel like they deserve to be better, I get annoyed at the judges.
Yeah, of course. I think
I
we
do,
all
right? But
do.
when it's me, I'm like, fair play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, I got fucked off, but then Rob was just like, look, and I now say this phrase to clients, especially when this happens. He's like, bodybuilding will kick you in the dick more often than you'll know it will.
Mm.
But when it does, take on the chin,
Keep
just
going.
get better. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's true, because one thing that like a lot of first timers I don't think realize is that politics is a part of the sport. I don't care what fed it is. I've seen it in every single one this year that competitors have been in, and it's went against them at times. It's went against me, but you know what? It plagues the sport, and there's no way around it. So rather than get fucked off about it, which I have to somewhat accept it and make sure. I said this to a client the other day. Said, well, mate, when you come back, and you be so good that doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
Clients will, let's face it, first timers out there probably don't know what politics means,
Mm.
right? But in a grand term sense of things, if you've never competed before, um, being a coach that's also on the judging panel, being sponsored by a certain company, etc., etc. That's what I mean by politics, and perhaps the results being influenced by
Mm.
those over how those athletes look. Sounds silly, right? But it happens, and that's just the sport. But I guess all that aside, I've got something written down here that said, placing or not, would you still bodybuild? Discuss.
Absolutely. And I think it's because it's so much more than placings and trophies. Like it genuinely, if all I was trying to get was trophies, it would just not be worth it. Like all that cardio, all those missing out on social events, snapping at Jack, like it would just not be worth it for just the trophies. And I think bodybuilding is so much more than, again, just like, I mean, that's relative to prep, but it's so much more than that. For me, bodybuilding brings structure to my life. It makes me feel empowered to be, I mean, I'm 5'2" on a good day, right? So to be a 5'2" female, stronger than some of the guys at the gym, because they train like fannies, but whatever, that doesn't matter. But stronger than some of the guys at the gym, to be able to push myself, to be able to see how my body can get stronger, can lift weights. I mean, that is like the coolest thing on this planet for me. Like, I love being strong. I love lifting weights. I love seeing the physique changes, because I think the thing with bodybuilding is that it's one of those sports that requires you to do something every single day that you can get immediate feedback from, immediate sense of like accomplishment. And those like 0.01s over the years, they add up and they add up and they add up. And being able to have something in your day-to-day life that you can focus on, knowing that it is gonna help you transform your physique, it's going to give you structure and routine to your life. To me, that's invaluable. I never, for example, as a teenager, I never saw myself as a strong person. That's never an adjective I would have used to describe myself. You know, I never thought I could look a certain way. And, you know, things like deadlifting 100 kilos, that was just like, I mean, what do you even mean by that? And to be able to do something like bodybuilding that's enabled me, like I said, with those 0.01%, to get to that point, that trophy or no trophy, I think that's amazing. And to look at how you can transform your physique when you dedicate a lot of time to thinking about your health in general, your sleep. I mean, because bodybuilding isn't just go to the gym, you know, lift some weights, have a protein shake. It's being meticulous about your sleep, being meticulous about your mental health, about your stress management, about your digestion, about your nutrition, beyond just fitting your macros. It's paying attention to so many more variables that help you live a better life. Yeah. That the competitive side of it is amazing. It gives it that extra edge. It gives you the goal. It gives you the target. But bodybuilding brings me so much more than just those things that kind of happen once in a blue moon. It's the boring shit, and I say that with quotations, that I love, because to me that's empowering and it's so fulfilling to be able to say, you know what, nobody else did that for me, and it's only me who can do that for myself. So who am I going to prioritize? By doing those things every single day in the off season or in prep, I'm putting myself first, and that's me investing time and value in myself in a very, and it sounds a bit metaphorical and a bit like spiritual or whatever, but that's literally what bodybuilding means to me. So of course I'd still bodybuild, and I know I'm going to be a bodybuilder for the rest of my life, no matter how much people say, oh, you'll get sick of it, you'll go into CrossFit. I'm like, well, I fuck. So yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference for you is if you have kids one day, you got to stop for a little bit of time to
For a little bit. I'll just curl my babies, but yeah, no, I think like other than that, I mean, there's so many women I follow who are mothers who've continued to bodybuild and who've continued to compete after giving birth and stuff. So I mean, it's just one of those things that whatever it looks like, it will always be a part of my life. And I know that, and I just because of everything it brings to me.
I could see that. I could foresee this, right, in like 10 years' time, just like being at a show with my little one. Maybe you've got some little ones there, and you're like competing backstage, or I'm competing at the same time,
Yeah.
having a look and be like, that, right? I'll say, do you remember that podcast we did 10 years ago? We were speaking about this.
You heard it here first.
You'll be doing masters over 35. I'll be masters over 40.
Okay, no.
I'll have no hair by that time because I'll take so much gear. No hair. But no, yeah, listen. I'll throw in my 2 cents about whether I would still bodybuild or not.
Yeah.
I still bodybuild when the world shut down.
Yeah.
Like, I found a way to train. Like, if when the world shut down, they said shows will never go on again, I would still keep doing what I was doing. I'd still eat my pre-workout oats and whey. I'd still go train at the same time. I'd have my intra. I'd still get my logbook out. I'd do my usual, put my fucking preset song on for the hack squat. Everything the same. Why? Because I just fucking love it.
Yeah,
I said this the other day, right? Came back from legs on, I think it was Tuesday. I was training with like Chris and Liam, and I think Ali was there. And I was like, here, babe. I was like, I fucking love bodybuilding. She's like, what? And I was like, just love it. Putting weight on the bar and like knowing in my head I've got a number and then beating it and getting it. Or like being in the set and be, oh, you'd be pissed off if you didn't write this down. Like jumping in the gym the day after a show, being like, off season starts now.
100%.
Like the day after I like did that UK BFF show in 2017 Men's Physique, I trained legs the next day, or 2 days after, because I had a photo shoot the next day. But it was just like off season begins. But it was like not an off season to do a show. It was just like that's what
get stronger. Where do we go now? I remember actually after my last 2019 show was the same. The day after, I went in, I trained. I just did like exercises that I hadn't been doing for ages, or just like a combination. But I was at the gym again, and I did my cardio, and then I went and got a coffee and a donut. And people were like, "Why are you at the gym the day after your show?" And I was like, "Because I don't go to the gym just to like compete. Like I go because I fucking love it. Like it's who I am. It's part of it's just part of what I love doing." And same with like people were asking me, "Oh, what are you having post show on Sunday?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing, just because I've got back-to-back shows." So training legs tomorrow, doing cardio in the morning, and they're like, "Oh my God, how do you do it?" And I'm like, well, it's what I love doing. It's not really a question of like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, yeah, it's tiring, but like you just kind of go in and you do it because it's more than just competing. It's bodybuilding in its entirety. And it's that I went in and I fucking smashed legs. And I was telling you actually that on Monday there, I trained back in the gym where I completed my first prep. So the gym that I started training in when we first started working together, and to go back and to look so different and to kind of come full circle and be like, the last time I was here, 90 kilo hip thrust was my absolute PB, and I was green by the end of it. And to now go in and be able to like, lift so much more, feel so much more confident. It was just amazing. And that feeling, like, I know that feeling only comes because for the last 4 years now, that's been me every single day. Is it training a day? Is it a rest day? What am I training? What am I eating? And it's not for everybody, but when you find something that inspires you so much, it's like, oh my God, cling on to it and like hold it close, because it's just amazing, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I think it shows that you're doing it for the right reasons. And what you'll see, and we've all seen this, and we see it, we'll see it next season as well. is people will go all in for a show, they don't place at a show, and then they just go the fucking opposite way. They stop training, they get fat, they get lazy. And when I see that, I'm just like, oh, you're doing this all for the wrong reasons. Like you're trying to get in just decent nick for for a trophy to boost your self-esteem, and because it's not happened, you've kind of let that get to you. But they don't do it for the love of the process. So all I'm just trying to say and add in is, from your sort of 2 cents there, is that if you're going to do it, if you're going to compete, make sure like I always say to people, you didn't start bodybuilding to compete on stage.
No.
It's just part of the journey. So always, as you said, kind of back at the start of the podcast, do it for the right reasons in the process.
100%. Like, if you love the process, the outcome that you can't control anyway, that's just a cherry on the top. And if you can put everything into the process and into making it the best that you can make it, that's where the true value shows. That's where you have also, I think, in my opinion, that you show your not just your character, like for other people to judge, but you show yourself what you're kind of made of, and you're like, actually, this is what I value. I value the process, and no one can take that away from me. No one can take it away from you. So yeah, the love of the process is what I think keeps people coming back. And that's what I suppose is the difference between the people who compete once and never do it ever again, and those who have long-term careers. I mean, even meeting some of the masters ladies over the weekend, they're like 50 odd and they've been competing for years, and they're like, I just fucking love this. And it's like, holy shit, like, yeah, and you look amazing, like, look at you.
Yeah, you'll be one of those masters ladies one day, I have no doubts.
Giving all the wee ones advice, I'll be like, I recorded a podcast 30 years ago.
I swear, because it'll still be around and you'll still be doing it. And yeah, like this podcast should still be live.
Yeah.
When that happens. So yeah, it'll be quite interesting to go back and listen to that in 20 years' time.
I know.
anyway, I know, listen, we're running out of time, but what I always like to say in how I end podcasts, and this might have changed from your last one, is to anyone out there listening, I will say that, do you want to give an example of just a lesson you've learned in life, maybe not one that's been soon. I know I'm just throwing this at you, by the way, because I didn't say I was going to say it, but just maybe perhaps since the last podcast, a lesson that you've learned in life and some advice you'd give it from it.
Oh, let me think. I think the main thing I've learned since the last podcast, so we recorded that during the second lockdown, is that acceptance of the things that are within your control and those that are with your control is one of the most empowering tools you could ever learn. Because when you accept that certain things are not within your control, it makes you very, very aware about the things that you can manipulate. And it makes you very deliberate about how you choose to spend your time. And it makes you very, just quite conscious and reflective of those things. So thinking back to lockdown, obviously we couldn't control whether we were locked down or not, but there were so many other things that we could control. And again, we spoke about this last time in terms of like what matters to you, your nutrition, you can still take care of your health, you can still take care of all these other things. And then same with kind of like bodybuilding, kind of reflecting on this conversation, it's accepting that the journey will be whatever it needs to be, accepting that on a prep you'll be hungry, accepting that in an off season you might feel uncomfortable, accepting and just letting things be the way they need to be, can then help you stay in the here and now and focus on what it is you need to do. Yeah. Because when we start thinking, oh my God, I wish I could change this, I wish I could go back in the past, I wish the future held this for me, like all this type of stuff, you just get distracted and then you've wasted a whole day. And I always say that worrying is like a rocking chair, like it gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere, right? So it's that acceptance process where you go, okay, cool, well, what do I need to do now? Like last week when I was doubting myself about being ready to step on stage, I was like, just shut up, brain. Like, okay, I'm panicking about this, but what do I need to do now? I need to smash the fuck out of this cardio session. So what are we going to do? We're going to put everything into this next minute and then into the next. Then we're going to go to the gym and we're going to smash our session. So accepting that things will be the way they end up being, and focusing on what you need to do here and now. That's been like by far the best lesson, certainly from this year, that I've taken away.
Yeah, that's class. I think to add to that, to relate that to this podcast, accepting that sometimes you need to lose to understand how it feels like to win. It's like one of the most important things.
100%. Yeah. And accepting that you can't control when you win and when you lose, and that irrespective of the result, if you know the work that you've put in, and if you can be proud of the work that you've put in, then it makes it easier to just take bodybuilding for what it is, and accept that there's politics in it, and accept that some people just look better than you do. Even though you look fucking amazing, some people look better. There's always going to be someone who looks better than you. And it just helps you move on. I just think it makes you so much happier, because then you're like, you step off stage and you go, amazing, what next? Where do we go now? How can I be better than me? Not than the other person, not than this. How can I be better than me?
Yeah. And I kind of like, when it was in the moment, and some of the times I didn't place, I would say that I was frustrated. But in hindsight, I kind of go, that needed to happen, so that the thing the next week happened.
Yeah, that's it.
Like I needed to lose there, so I wasn't like resting on my laurels, so that I went and smashed it and won the British. Or I needed to lose there to then fucking ramp up and come back a bit better for the Northwest or whatever it was. But yeah, I thought I'd add that in because it's so important to come back, I would say, from what could feel like a disappointment, but to come back, putting the work in for things to go a bit better. But even if you don't place again, just looking better and going, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's something.
Weight in gold. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Okay. We've kind of run out of time there, but listen, thank you for your time. I know that all the listeners out there are going to wish you well for the rest of the season, which it's going to be a long one, but one that I'm excited for, one that I know that you'll do well. You'll get the results that you fucking deserve to get third this weekend. But hey, is what it is. But yeah, for me and listeners, obviously, good luck. To anyone else out there listening, for myself and Clara, give it the beans.